Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Adnastana. It's a pleasure to be back here with you on Points of Light Radio and continuing this journey of light and knowledge that we began over 2 years ago now. And in today's segment of Points of Light Radio, we will be continuing that journey by featuring an organization that you've never seen here on Points of Light Radio before, and I can almost guarantee you here again that you've never heard of. And that organization is the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem. There again, you're going, who? Right? I'll give you some insight. The Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem is part of the Masonic Fraternal body. The order is open to both men and women alike. And the goal of the order is to uphold the simple religion of Christ and further the gospel. And here to shed some light on the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem is Marshall Long. He is the Supreme Watchman of the Shepherds for the White Shrine of the Jerusalem International. I had a bit of a conversation with him a few days ago, and I can't wait to introduce him to you and the organization. So let's have Mr. Long shed some light on the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem. But, as I always ask you, are you still thirsty for knowledge? Are you still searching for the light? Then you just trim your lamp and follow me. And yes, I did get a haircut. Mr. Long, welcome to Points of Light Radio.
Hello, thank you.
Now, you are the Watchman of Shepherds for the White Shrine.
Yes, I am the Supreme Watchman of Shepherds for the White Shrine of Jerusalem International.
Okay, and why don't you tell my listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been a member of White Shrine for over 30 years, and I've been attending White Shrine for a lot of that time. White Shrine is a Masonic group for the men and women, and so it is similar in some respects to the Eastern Star. It was originally founded as an advanced degree of the Eastern Star back in the late 1800s, and it was a collaboration between Eastern Star and the so it is based in Christianity, such as Commandery is. And we operate in the United States and in Canada. Back in the late 1800s, when it was originally founded, there were a couple of different organizations or supreme shrines at that time, one in Illinois and one in Michigan. Early 1900s, around 1909, the two groups merged in to become the Supreme Shrine of the White Shrine of Jerusalem, and it was chartered in Chicago, Illinois.
Now, you said you've been a member for how long?
For about 30 years.
Wow. Okay, and now what would your duties be as the Supreme Watchman for the Shepherds of the White Shrine?
Supreme Watchman of Shepherds is or the Watchman of Shepherds in a regular subordinate shrine, is the advisor to our Supreme Worthy High Priestess, or in the subordinate shrines to the local Worthy High Priestess. The Worthy High Priestess is the woman who is in charge of the chapter or the shrine. And so the Supreme Watchman of Shepherds, my job, in addition to advising her, is I am more or less responsible for the care of shrines that need assistance. So if we have shrines that are struggling, they can reach out to me for advice. And when we have a shrine that unfortunately has to close due to lack of funds, lack of membership, the things that affect some of our shrines, then they contact me, and I'm responsible for completing the paperwork process to get that shrine closed and or merged into another shrine nearby. And sometimes we make the members that don't have a shrine local, we make them members at large, so they can still attend Supreme Shrine functions. They can still attend other shrines. But those are the two main duties of the Watchman of Shepherds.
Now you talk about shrines closing. Uh, is that happening very often? Like, how are you doing membership wise?
Well, this year, I have been really working hard with our Supreme Worthy High Priestess, Barbara Eccles, at promoting the order and getting our name out there, because quite often we've heard that the White Shrine of Jerusalem is the best kept secret in Masonry because no one's heard of us. But we have really tried to improve that this year, and we have several areas where we are growing. Myself and my wife and several of us have gone to our initiations at various different states, from Pennsylvania to Chicago to Nashville. And there are pockets where, unfortunately, this year we had to merge two different shrines due to declining membership. But we do have a lot of shrines that have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement, and we're really, really growing in some of those locations. So,
Well, let's talk about the three purposes that I've observed there on your website. First of all, there's spiritual, charitable, and fraternal. So, the spiritual aspect, the spiritual purpose, how do you go about achieving that?
as I said, we are based in Christianity. Our initiation ceremony is a retelling of the birth of Christ as it was observed by the wise men. So we tell the journey of the wise men to go see Jesus, and we share that story with our members. And so that's the main reason, or main the thing that we do with our Christianity, as well as we have various church observances at our Supreme session. We have a church service, and we do try to promote the ideals and the goals of Christianity to
So
our
do you
members.
have, like you say, church services? Do you visit churches and, shall we say, have join with church services and things like that on Sundays? Things like something like Freemasonry does, as I understand it. They actually.
I have had some. I mean, it's not a program that all the shrines go out and do, but I have heard of several shrines partnering with churches or attending church services and maybe talking about White Shrine to them. So yeah, we have reached out in that way.
Good. What about charitable? Now, what charities does the shrine support?
Well, this is actually the very interesting piece of it. Many years ago, they came up with what we call the material objective.
Okay.
And this fund was created at the time, and it's still run every year. Each member contributes a penny a week, or 52 cents a year. And that has grown into a multi-million dollar endowment fund from which we pay medical expenses for people in need, people that are unable to meet their medical expenses. So if someone needs, say, hearing aids, and their insurance company won't cover the hearing aids, or they can't afford the deductibles or whatever they have with their hearing aids, or they can submit a case with us. Our Supreme Material Objective Board will review that case based on need, based on medical expertise. We do get the medical doctors to sign off that says that this is necessary, and then we pay the doctor to cover that medical expense. And we've covered many different things through the years. We've had some children. I know that there was one young man I knew that needed a specialized bicycle because he had a palsy. and they could not afford the bicycle. It was, several $1,000s. I don't remember the amount at the time, but we were able to provide that device for him so that he could increase his mobility and increase his quality of life. And those are the kinds of outreaches that the Material Objective was designed for, was to reach out to those people in need. And that goes back to the Christian belief of help your neighbors in need.
So not just members of the shrine, or family members, people outside of the shrine, unrelated to Freemasonry and so on. That's wonderful.
Anybody that needs it. So
that's great. Now the fraternal purpose. Now let's talk about that. This is one area. What would you be doing for that?
Well, as the Supreme Watchman, my job was to appoint some fraternal relations chairmen and committees, and those fraternal relations members actually go out and talk to the other bodies. They'll go to the Grand Lodge. Like myself, I went to our Grand Lodge this year and had the opportunity to visit with other members of the Masonic fraternity and kind of share the word about White Shrine and get that information out there. So it's kind of a fraternal outreach. It's all member driven to go talk to other organizations and convince them, or at least make them aware of the White Shrine.
Excellent. Now, what exactly does the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem do that, shall we say, other branches of Freemasonry don't? Because you're in other branches. So what would you find that would be?
I mean, we do a lot of the same things, so I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously we're reaching out to people with the Material Objective Fund and things along those lines to try and get the word out and get the assistance out to people that need it. And I don't know that would be really any different than any other Masonic fraternity. And we really don't. I don't consider ourselves different from the Masonic fraternity because we are a part of it. So it's all under the same umbrella.
Okay. Now, I read this on your website. Our order does not attempt to replace the church. Rather, it enriches the teachings of the church. Now, I've done a segment on fraternalism in faith, or will be releasing it soon. How do you find now that it does enrich the teachings of the church? How do you find it, maybe even on a personal level, shall we say?
I would say it's the fraternal relations, or the bonds you build with the people and the members of the order. We had a specific incident this last year where we were out in California, and it was just wonderful to see the shrine that we met with. After the meeting, everybody was chipping in and helping each other out when they were cleaning the room or cleaning up after the meal. It was all, hey, how about if I help you with that? Or, well, where does this go? How can I help put this kind of thing away? And it's just that friendship and that bond, those bonds that are developed by being together.
So God's word in action.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Isn't that beautiful? I think that's wonderful. Now, the order is open to men and women alike. You're also involved in traditional male Freemasonry, or you have been involved. So how do you find that mixed lodges work well? How do you find it?
Well, this is not a mixed lodge, so to speak. This is a branch of. If you're familiar with the Eastern Star, like I said, we were an advanced degree of Eastern Star.
Yeah.
So it is a women's organization that has male members as well.
Yeah.
So it does promote, in some respects, I think it's personally, it really works well for me. I grew up around this. My mother and father were members. My grandmother, and she was a member. And so my family has been involved in it for years. And it's a great opportunity for my wife and I to spend time doing these things together.
Mm-hmm. And I think you'll agree with me, because I've done a segment on this before too, as well. Like the experience that men and women have, their unique experiences within fraternalism. And men and women both bring something to the table. And when you have these essentially mixed organizations, I think you'll agree with me, it does enrich things, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's great to have, a different perspective on different things. Obviously not to get stereotypical, but sometimes men will go down a certain path and not consider some of the other options. And a woman can offer some other additional guidance that says, well, what if you thought about it this way? And those are great opportunities to share those ideas and help work towards that common goals.
And I've said this before, like men are great at getting the grunt work done, but I do find women's organizational skills, their fundraising abilities, for one thing, are probably a lot better than men's. Wouldn't you agree?
Agree. This year, traveling all over the country with my wife and I, she has been able to keep me on the straight and narrow path. We'll come up with some kind of off the wall ideas, and it's a great concept and a great thought. But then she's like, she'll bring us back to, well, what about this? Or did you think about how you're going to actually implement that? And so we'll
Sober
sit
second
down and we'll be able to, yeah.
thought. Okay, what drew you to Freemasonry?
Well, that's interesting.
You said
Like I
it was
said,
in your family.
my family had been involved in it for years. We actually, when my daughter joined, uh, I guess 3 years ago, we had found a Bible or a ritual from 1921 that was belonged to my great grandmother.
Wow.
So we go back a long ways in this fraternity, and I was also a D Malay in my youth. That is how my wife and I met. She was a Job Daughters. I was a D Malay member, and we met at a D Malay function years and years ago. And 3 years later, we got married, and we've been married going on 32 years soon.
Now, what are the future plans for the White Shrine?
Future plans. Well, just like any other organization, we have our annual convention, which is coming up this weekend. I've been trying to get ready for that in Tennessee. And we will be electing our new officers, because my term is only a 1-year term. And just like in the DMLA ritual says, we rise from the ranks for but a brief time, and to those ranks we return. So personally, I'm going to be returning to back to, like you mentioned earlier, the grunt work and doing the work of the order. But I think that this past year we've really instilled a lot of excitement and enthusiasm in the order, and I'm hoping that continues, and we continue to see at least incremental growth in some areas. And we've had some people reach out to us from areas that either we had shrines in years ago or have never had shrines, and there is interest there. So there's an interest for people to come together, and we want to hope we can meet that need.
Where's this interest coming from? The young, the old? What are you finding with in the membership plans that way?
Some of the, well, I'm trying to think, down in the Carolina areas, there was a group of younger Masons in their 20s, early 30s that were interested in it. But then we've also seen some of the older ones in my generation, 50s, 60s, that are interested as well. I've seen, like I said, we've done a multitude of initiations this past year.
Good.
And across the country, and I've seen everything from an 18-year-old young lady joining up to a 68-year-old or about probably a 70-year-old grandmother join.
You need
So
both.
we've had the mix in between too.
That's good. And it might be just me, because I've been doing this for about 2 years now, this podcast. And would you say I'm right in assuming that there is maybe a resurgence in just fraternalism, the interest in it or something from?
I think there is. I think there is in the right environment. As I said, my wife and I have been involved for 30 some years, but I call us unicorns, because we were very active in our 20s, but we had come up through the youth groups, and we had come up through the White Shrine, and so we were active in our late 20s, but we didn't have kids yet. We had kids about 20 years ago, and you're not going to catch those younger parents that have young kids unless you have a way for them to be involved. And there is that resurgence, like you said. I think after COVID, I've seen a lot more people wanting to get together, wanting to share time together, because it is precious. We are all, are all God's children, and we're all precious opportunities to meet with each other and to interact with each other. And I have seen, I know, in Ohio where I live, a couple of years ago, there was a huge resurgence of new members joining the lodges. Now, I don't know about retention rates, but I do know that they've had some really big, all day classes, or whatever you want to call them. So, we got to find a way to make sure we connect with those people too. Is we don't want to just have an initiation and say, okay, we brought in 10 new people.
Yeah.
Thanks. Go sit over there.
Mhm.
We got to reach out. We got to make sure we get them involved and find them to do something to help out and
And
learn.
I do find that as well, that in my personal experience in fraternalism, the mentorship is important. You need those people to kind of make sure that this person, like you say, is kept interested and show them the way and talk them through things. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, those of us that have been there before, we have to be the teachers. I mean, the person walking in the door. I remember walking in the door. Well, I'll go back to my son. When he joined DMLA, he had no interest in DMLA. He did not want to join, and he signed his petition. We like to say, remind him, he signed it in a pink pen, and he signed it in protest. But within a couple of weeks of getting to meet some of the other boys and learning some of the things, and as he learned, he developed into a love of the order and a love of that camaraderie and that organization. And he went on to great things within DMLA. And he was, that's the kind of things you've got to find a way to touch them and reach them, and understand it and explain it to them so that they can understand.
Now, I've heard it said that you learn a lot about yourself, as you move through the ranks or over your time in fraternalism. Now, what did you learn about yourself in Freemasonry, and of course, for specifically the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem? What did you learn?
What did I learn? That's a very good question. Because I think I learned a lot this year. I think I grew a lot this year. As we traveled around the country, I learned that I can, sometimes I struggled with my organization skills, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And I found the I could make that work. I could do those kind of organizational things to help keep track of the shrines that needed help, to reach out to them. I learned that, I personally, I enjoy talking to people over email, over text, but you know what? I also learned that I've got to reach out and pick up the phone a few times and call some people, because sometimes people just prefer to talk over the phone, talk it out over the phone. In my industry, we do a lot of electronic communication, so I don't think about that much. But so I learned a lot more of those communication skills. I learned a lot more about teaching myself how to deal with other people's problems and look at people's problems from their perspective to try and understand what they're dealing with. Because as the Supreme Watchman, I'm dealing with shrines from coast to coast in Canada, and I need to understand. I don't understand what their environment is. I've never been to Iowa myself.
Mhm.
So tell me more about what you've got going on there. Tell me, what are some of the things you guys like to do in your area? What are some of the things that other people like to do? So trying to get that other perspective from people to see how I can offer my assistance to them.
And I love what you're saying there, because yes, it is important, Twitter, or X as it's called now, or what we're doing now. But I think you will agree that, especially in fraternalism, it was made to be like a person to person contact. There's no substitute for sitting down in that lodge. You'll agree with me. There's no substitute for that. There's no substitute for going to those, like you say, those grand lodge meetings or sessions where you're meeting all of those individuals, and there's no substitute for that. It's wonderful to meet in other ways, or like the text and everything, but there's just no substitute for that. You got to have that too.
You do. You have to have that, because you're right. There is nothing different, nothing better than sitting down and talking to someone else and learning getting their experiences.
Yeah, and I remember talking about that on one of my segments when I did Restore the Brotherhood, where we met in it's. You live in Ohio, I live in Alberta. You understand the cold winters, and we met at the month of January, and we had a great meeting together. It wasn't a whole lot of us there, but we got together afterwards in the lounge in the basement, and just that feeling of menschkeit, you can't. There's no substituting that. I think you'll agree with that.
I do. I think that's definitely, definitely something that we need to make sure we're doing more of is getting out there and, being together. That's very important.
And what do you think the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem could do for others, shall we say, looking at it? What do you think it could do?
I think we've got a story to tell of the birth of Christ and how important he is to our lives, and we need to continue to share that. And we share that through our organization, and like I said earlier, the material objective outreach program is definitely a big part of that. Is helping other people in need.
Well, Mr. Long, on that note, I appreciate you being here today, and all the very best. I thank you for your time today, and all the very best to you and the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem, sir.
Say thank you to you for this. This is a wonderful platform that you have given to us and to the lights of Masonry, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Pleasure was all mine, sir. Bye-bye. Marshall Long, brothers and sisters, shedding some more light on the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem. How do you feel about this organization? Well, let me begin by saying that as secularism has taken over large parts of these fraternal bodies, it's good to hear that there are still organizations like the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem that are still there for those who are, shall we say, spiritually thirsty, or those who still want to still bring some faith values into their fraternal journey. I also loved how Mr. Long talked about continuous learning, right? You can continue to learn no matter how long you've been in fraternalism, right? And he's been on the Masonic career path for 30 years. Imagine that. And he's still learning. I love that. The need for mentorship is something that Mr. Long also brought up. He started in the demo lay as a young man, right? And it sounds like there's always been members who've encouraged him on, mentored him, right, as he went along. And I think that's very important. I think we've hit, sitting here now, I think we've hit on a future topic or in a future segment of Points of Light Radio, the need for mentorship and how do we go about mentoring people in our lodges, right? Another thing I got from this conversation, and here again, possibly a topic for another segment of Points of Light Radio, is the need for person-to-person. Yes, we do need to expand our message. Electronic contact and social media is very important. There's no way around that anymore, right? We have to have that, but let's never forget that that fraternalism started out and still should largely be a person-to-person type of relationship. We cannot forget that person-to-person contact that we need, the work that gets done in our lodges, right? And the need to meet with one another. As a matter of fact, I just sat down with a brother from in my lodge. That moved into my area from another jurisdiction, And it was wonderful to sit down in a coffee shop and have a cup of coffee with them. And I'll be taking him by the lodge tomorrow. And we need to keep doing. Young fellow there, and I brought him on. You know, I'm all for encouraging him on. He wanted to see the lodge. I mean, he could wait till the next meeting, but no, I'm going to bring him by the lodge tomorrow. We need to do that, right? Right. And, you know, you hear me ask this all the time. Have you ever heard of the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem? Well, you have now, right? And I will, and you know what? You have now, you know the route there. If you're interested in joining, I'm going to include some contact information in here. There's plenty of room in the Masonic family for this organization, and we'll definitely be featuring this gentleman and the organizations he belongs to, and even the Order of the White Shrine of Jerusalem here again on Points of Light Radio. But I'm going to have to leave it there for now, brothers and sisters. Before I go, I want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. I also welcome your comments and input. You can follow Points of Light Radio on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My Twitter handle is at PO Light Radio. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as my Points of Light Radio store. Brothers and sisters, it's been a pleasure fellowshipping with you and my guests here today. Until we meet again, just step into the light.